The latest intel on a few Longhorns with a looming NFL draft decision. Some surprise names who could be leaving early. Let's dive in on Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're locked on to the Texas Longhorns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now the number one sports podcast network in the world. I'm your host, BK, Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin local, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you, everydayers, for making Locked On Longhorns your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. Steve Sarkisian gave us some insights into the Longhorns transfer portal plans. Plus, we'll talk about my favorite signee for the Longhorns class of 2026. But first, some big decisions are facing a number of Texas Longhorns as we approach the postseason and the offseason. Contract proposals are out. Yes, we are still talking about college football, I think. Exit interviews are going on. And even though the 2026 season is 274 days away, not that we're counting, we'll have a pretty clear picture of what the 2026 Texas roster will look like within about a month's time. Texas had 23 players walk on senior night before the win over Texas A&M last Friday. Yeah, that was fun 7 days ago. A couple of those guys who walked can return, but most of them are out of eligibility. We're focusing on guys who could come back to Austin for another year, whether they walked on senior night or not, guys who might decide to take their talents to the next level. And there are some big names to get into, and we've got some interesting updates on 5 key Longhorns who would be major contributors if they decided to return next season. We'll start with Tre Wisner. It's been reported this week that Tre Wisner is seriously contemplating turning pro, which is interesting considering the year that he just had. He probably viewed 2025 as a contract year following the 1,000-yard season he had in 2024, and I kind of did too, but it just didn't really come together for Contravion this season. Part of it was the hamstring injury he dealt with early on. Part of it was the Texas offensive line just shuffling the deck for the first couple of months of the season. And look, overall, it was just a lack of production for Tre Wisner, especially compared to what he did in 2024. I don't know if Tre Wisner should leave. I don't think he should leave. Now, I get it. We're talking about running backs here. We know the shelf life for that position is shorter than any other position in football. Those guys wear out quicker than anybody else. It feels like a minor miracle if a running back is playing into his 30s in the NFL, and you got certain positions that play well into their 40s these days. So there's only a certain amount of hits and carries that Tre Wisner has as a football player. I understand that, but I feel like it would behoove him to come back to Texas for one more season to see if he could try to get closer to 1,000 yards or even surpass the yardage total that he had in 2024. If it's a contract year, I don't know if the money that Tre Wisner is looking for is going to be what he's going to get. And I don't think he'd be anything higher than a mid to late day 3 draft pick if he decided to go. Jaden Blue left early last year, ended up going in round 5. It was a bad decision because he's not playing at all for the Dallas Cowboys right now. He could have used another year, maybe a cautionary tale for Tre Wisner. Texas already needs a running back in the portal, even if Tre does return. If Wisner leaves, Texas really needs a running back, maybe running backs, plural, in the portal this year. But that's an interesting one. And again, it sounds like Tre is seriously contemplating going to the NFL draft. Another kind of surprising name, considering the year that he just had, DeAndre Moore. Moore set an extremely high bar for himself in the offseason. He was talking about wanting to be a Biletnikoff finalist. He was talking about wanting to break Jordan Shipley's single-season touchdown record at Texas, which is 13. He did not do either of those things. He didn't really come close to doing either of those things. Now, those were incredibly lofty expectations. I and most of y'all, I assume, did not expect Demo to do those things, but 532 yards, 4 touchdowns, 38 catches this year. Not great, not bad, believe it or not. More yards in 2024 than, or excuse me, in 2025 than 2024, even though it felt like a little bit of a down year for DeAndre Moore. But yeah, those aren't numbers that scream you've got to go to the NFL right now. Those feel like numbers where, hey, maybe another year of college football would be in your best interest. Here's the interesting part of the DeAndre Moore equation. This is different than Tre Wisner. If Wisner comes back, he's the number one running back until somebody dethrones him, more than likely somebody out of the portal. For DeAndre Moore, I don't know where he fits in that wide receiver rotation in 2026. I think Ryan Wingo's ahead of him. I think Parker Livingston's ahead of him. I think Emmett Mosley's ahead of him right now. And then you look at the young guys, right? The freshmen who didn't play much in 2025, but Texas brought in an elite crop of wide receivers in this past cycle, guys going into their second seasons next year. Those guys are going to be fighting hard for playing time. And DeAndre Moore plays a lot of slot. Dalen McCutcheon plays a lot of slot too. That guy has a really, really good opportunity to get some extra snaps in 2026. So I think DeAndre Moore is like, at best, maybe the 4th most valuable receiver that Texas has right now. And the Longhorns are going to be renegotiating contracts with some of those other guys in that wide receiver room to make sure they don't go. I don't know if Demo is going to be at the top of the list of priorities for Steve Sarkisian and Chris Jackson. So Demo, knowing that, I mean, he could go pro because he's draft eligible. Maybe he enters the portal and tries to go get a bigger role somewhere else. I don't know. Again, I don't think he's quite ready for the NFL. I don't think he's done enough to be a super high draft pick in the league, but he's another guy that I've been told is very much considering taking his talents to the next level. One more on offense, and then we'll get to a couple on defense. Jack Endries, the Cal transfer tight end who just did not have the year that he or me or any of us were hoping. After what Gunnar Helm did last year at tight end, after what Jatavion Sanders did the 2 years before, and with what Endries did at Cal last year, like I was thinking he'd be a 50 to 60 catch guy. Not even close. 28 catches, 311 yards, 2 touchdowns. He walked on senior night. I didn't love that. I kind of thought like, okay, Endries is for sure coming back because this year hasn't been great. I wonder if Texas maybe lowballed him a little bit with the NIL offer. Maybe he transfers somewhere. I don't know if Jack Endries, I think he'd be drafted somewhere, but another guy that I don't know would go as high as he would want if he left right now. Considering what Endries did against A&M last week, I would love to have him back. 4 catches, 93 yards. We saw how good he can be, and I think with a better Arch Manning and a better Texas offense, he could make a much better impact if he did return. But that's another name, another guy. I think when Endries transferred here, he was thinking he was going to be one and done. Is that still the case, or does he try to put together a much better year? All right, going to the defensive side. Hero Kanu, the defensive tackle who transferred in from Ohio State. He's almost the opposite of the 3 guys we just talked about because I did not have super high expectations for him. He didn't play much for the Buckeyes. No, Ohio State had a great team last year. Unfortunately, we all know how good of a team they had last year. But I was thinking he would be a rotational piece at best on the Texas defensive line. He was way more than that. 30 tackles, 4 TFLs, 2 sacks. He was the most productive of the 5 defensive line transfers that the Longhorns brought in, and he plugged some serious holes on the interior of the Horns defensive front. I think this one's coming down to money. I've heard that Kanu wants to turn pro, but he's willing to listen if Texas shows him how much he's appreciated, for lack of a better phrase. Another guy who walked on senior night, and he had family members coming in from his native Germany to watch him play against A&M. That to me is like, yeah, hey, this is going to be my last college game, so y'all come check me out before I go pro. Again, sounds like Kanu is listening, but I don't know. He had a great year, and he has played himself into that NFL conversation. So we'll see what happens with him. And then last but not least, Jelani McDonald, the safety. He generated some NFL buzz with his 2025 season. If he goes, he's going to get drafted, no doubt. I'm not sure where, but if he goes, he'll get drafted. If he returns and builds on his 2025 campaign with a strong 2026, I think he could play his way into a day two guy, sort of like what Andrew Makuba did in his only year in Austin, his final year of college football. I hope it happens. I read that McDonald is strongly considering a return to Texas. Like, that's the leader in the clubhouse right now. I think money is a big part of this one too. He would be next year's Michael Taft if he returns. That anchor in the Texas secondary with a ton of experience, the leader with his play, with his voice in the locker room. It'd be great to get him on the back end once again. If he leaves, again, Taft's already gone out of eligibility. You'd be down both safeties, and your backups did not show you a whole lot this year. Major holes to fill. Safety would go to the top of transfer portal needs for Texas if Jelani decides to go pro. So I would expect Texas to come in pretty strong with a financial offer to keep number 4 around. All right. 2 guys that I intentionally left out until now, by the way, Anthony Hill and Malik Muhammad. There's no contemplating here. Their decisions have already been made. Those guys were 3-year players from the moment they stepped foot on campus. They've done their time. Time's a little harsh, but they're gone. They're both, if not first-round picks, they're going to be top 50 picks next year. They'll be missed a lot, but don't want to spend too much time talking about them because, again, I think the decision has been made for them for a while. All right, what say you? Your thoughts on the 5 to 7 names that I mentioned? Anybody else that you think Texas really needs to retain this off season? Some big looming decisions for some Longhorns. All right, let's shift gears here. Steve Sarkisian, he usually keeps his cards pretty close to his vest. He didn't yesterday. He gave us some major intel about the Longhorns transfer portal plans. We will get to what he said coming up next on Locked On Longhorns. But first, a word for our friends at FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the NFL action, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight, it's all right there. And live betting is the absolute best when the game starts to shift. If a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or you get that big momentum change after a turnover, FanDuel lets you jump into the moment at any time. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be in the action all season long, head over to FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. And also a shout out to Dewar. Oh, man, the holidays are here, and this year I'm not stressing about what to wear because I'll be wearing my Dewars. I'm literally wearing them right now as we record. The most comfortable pants that I own, bar none. I've been recommending them to y'all for a while now. I've been recommending them to friends and family. They are my favorite jeans to wear for any occasion. The quality is unmatched. The comfort is ridiculous. And the style, I mean, they're jeans, so they look like jeans, and jeans never go out of style. But unlike other jeans, they are actually comfortable, and you can wear them anywhere you go. The fabric is so stretchy, I honestly forget I'm even wearing jeans. Designed to look great and stay comfortable all year long and all day long as well. It's time for you to experience the comfort of Dewar. I know you'll love these. Pick a pair for yourself, or hey, get them as a holiday gift. They make for a great gift. You can find Dewar at your local Austin REI location if you live in town, or you can shop online. Shop Dewar.com/LockedOnLonghorns. About 15% off your first order. Shop DUER.com/LockedOnLonghorns for 15% off. Again, shop Dewar.com/LockedOnLonghorns. All right, welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. Without question, the biggest story for Texas's offseason will be how Steve Sarkisian handles his roster over the next 5 to 6 weeks. Texas has a talented roster coming back, there's no doubt, but this roster is also in need of some major tweaks if the Horns not only want to make the playoff next year, but have a legitimate shot of winning a national championship. That's my goal. I think that's your goal. And the Longhorns need a roster that helps them achieve that goal. Steve Sarkisian was asked kind of a dual-layer question at his press conference on National Signing Day back on Wednesday about how he goes about high school recruiting versus acquiring players out of the portal, and then what positions he feels like his team still needs to address in the portal after National Signing Day. Here's what the head coach had to say.
For the most part, it's recruiting high-level elite players and not settling because, again, we have other needs that we need to fill immediately, and that's what the portal's for, right? And as I touched on, I think the offensive line is something that we're going to address in the portal. An interior defensive lineman is something we'll address in the portal, potentially a linebacker, potentially something in the secondary, potentially a running back. I mean, so there's needs there that we're going to address. But again, do they fit us? Do they fit us physically and in the style in which we want to play? Do they fit us culturally from a character standpoint? And that's the homework that we need to do to get that done. And so that, again, the transfer portal is great, and like I said, it fills needs for us. But at the end of the day, when you really look at us year in and year out, the bulk of what we do is in high school recruiting.
And Sark went on, but you get the point. I think that was everything you needed to hear for this segment. Steve Sarkisian was very open, like surprisingly open with that answer. I figured he would just say, we're looking at the entirety of our roster and we're trying to figure out what our needs are. And hey, we'll have a plan ready to go when the portal opens up in January, but that's all I'm going to give you right now. Oh, he elaborated. He went into a lot more detail than I expected. A very pleasant surprise from the head coach. Something to keep in mind, Sark is in the middle of exit interviews with players, and those conversations are brutally honest. Like, Sark tells his guys exactly where they stand, what they need to improve, whether they're going to be like an all-conference caliber player, whether they maybe will make the two deep, or maybe, hey, it's time to go. And for some of those players who are on the fringe, that determines whether they stick around or hit the portal. So, when Sark kind of publicly hints that Texas may only take a small number of transfers, there are two ways to read that. Number one, he genuinely feels like the roster doesn't have a ton of holes. But number two, the more likely angle, and again, because he talked about a few different positions there, I think he's kind of downplaying the number a little bit so current players don't feel pushed out. That's big for keeping retention across the board, including guys thinking about going to the NFL. But he talked about the offensive line, right? And that's the biggest need for me. I think that's the biggest need for just about every Texas fan out there. Texas needs some quality, not just quantity offensive linemen, but some quality guys who are ready to start. They might lose all three of their starters on the interior of this 2025 O-line. DJ Campbell and Cole Hudson have to go. Connor Robertson walked on senior night. All three of them might be gone. You need some bodies there. We saw some of the others play at guard this season. And look, guys can get better, but they weren't good enough. We're talking about Texas trying to win now, or at least win in 2026. I don't know if you have those guys on campus on the interior of your offensive line that can win you a national championship. So you need some quality. Hell, you might need some quantity too, considering Texas only signed 3 offensive linemen in the recruiting class. But quality guys, you might see Texas bring in 4 or 5 offensive linemen the way they brought in 5 defensive linemen last year. That's the biggest area of need. Sark also talked about, he said potentially a linebacker. That's basically code for, yeah, we need one, but I'm trying to keep Anthony Hill. You don't need me to tell you how unlikely that is. Actually, I just told you in segment 1. He said potentially something in the secondary. He's going to take a swing at keeping Malik Muhammad. I think he's also gone, but also Jelani McDonald too. And then Sark said potentially a running back. Look, they need a running back. There's no potential there, but maybe that's a message to Tre Wisner. Like, we're not pushing you out the door. We'd love to have you back if you are willing to come back. But again, that's area number 2 of greatest need for Texas behind the offensive line. So Steve Sarkisian, again, being pretty open, talking about exact positions where Texas could be going after in the portal. And I think that aligns with how I feel about this roster. I think it probably aligns with how most of Longhorn Nation feels as well. Offensive line, running back. A lot of this is wait and see. What do those guys we talked about in segment 1, what decisions do they make? That obviously will give Steve Sarkisian and company a clearer picture for what they need to do. But I do think Texas is going all in on the portal this year. And we didn't see a lot of additions on the offensive side of the ball last season. Texas clearly made the defense the bigger priority between 2024 and 2025. And it's not like they're going to ignore defense, but they are going to do whatever they can to surround Arch Manning with enough talent to maximize his skill set, because he didn't get a whole lot of help from the 10 guys around him this season. So there you go. Steve Sarkisian talking a little bit about Texas's portal plans. What do you think? Where does Texas need to address in the portal? Would love to hear from y'all. All right, one more segment on a Friday show. Let's do a segment on my favorite signee that the Longhorns brought in during National Signing Day. This guy is going to be so much fun. We'll let you hear Steve Sarkisian talking about him, and also I'll give a few thoughts myself next on Locked On Longhorns. But first, the holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every single time. It's not just something you wrap, it's a way to share memories, because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before gifting it, so when they plug it in, the memories are already there. There's no crazy apps to figure out. There's no setup headaches. There's no spending hours plugging those pictures in. No, you get instant smiles from the jump. Perfect for parents, perfect for your spouse, grandparents. I mean, anybody who loves photos. The packaging comes gift ready. No price tag, no wrapping needed. It's all ready to go when you buy it. This is a holiday gift that actually gets used, not just forgotten in a drawer. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver mat frames, named #1 by Wirecutter. Use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. Again, Aura Frames, that's AURA frames.com. Promo code COLLEGE, and you'll get $35 off those Carver mat frames. This is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast, so order yours now to get them in time for the holidays. Make sure you mention us at checkout as well. Terms apply. auraframes.com, promo code COLLEGE. All right, final segment of the week here on Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. You know, I feel like I'm not supposed to pick favorites, or like at least admit that I have a favorite, right? A good parent never admits who their favorite child is. I'm not a good parent. I'm not a parent at all, so that helps. So I don't have to play by those rules. I have a favorite signee in the Longhorns class of 2026, and I am willing to tell you who that is right now. It's Jermaine Bishop, the 4 to 5 star, depending on which recruiting service you look at, athlete from Willis. We talked about him a bit earlier in the week. If you didn't see his numbers from Willis High School's playoff win last week against Forney, I'll repeat them real quick. 15 catches, 328 receiving yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. He also had 7 carries for 19 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown, 2 for 3 passing for 42 yards, had a 39-yard punt that pinned Forney at their own 14-yard line. And he also had a game-sealing interception on a Hail Mary on defense as Forney was trying to tie it up. Whoa. And yeah, Willis is 6A, Texas high school football. We're not talking about 6-man or 1A or 2A or anything like that. No disrespect to all of those schools and players, but we're talking about like the best of the best right there. And that's what Jermaine Bishop just did in a, I think, 3rd round playoff game. He's not just a one-year wonder either. He's been putting up video game numbers on both sides of the ball for his entire high school career. That's still going on because Willis is still alive. You talk about an athlete. Some guys are listed as athlete on those recruiting services, but it's really because they just don't have a position and they're just calling him one. No, this guy is a legitimate, bona fide superstar athlete, and I think he's too good of one to leave on the sideline, even as a true freshman. Steve Sarkisian was asked about Jermaine Bishop Wednesday, at his National Signing Day presser, and he raved about him for so long that I actually had to cut out like the first minute of his answer. Sark was asked about recruiting an athlete of Bishop's caliber and kind of how you handle choosing which side of the ball he's going to play on. Because again, Bishop is an offensive guy, a defensive guy. He contributes on special teams as well in high school. And Sark started talking about his experiences with John Ross at Washington and Adoree Jackson at USC, 2 guys who played in all 3 phases during their college careers, 2 guys who ended up as first-round picks in the NFL draft when their college careers were done. I got pretty excited hearing those comparisons. Here's Steve Sarkisian talking a little bit about those guys and kind of how Bishop will be used when he gets to the 40 acres.
John Ross, wanted to kind of be a receiver, and that's what he ended up being in his career and getting drafted as a receiver. Adoree, at the end of the day, DB was his love, and that's what he wanted to do. But it grew into that. And I think the same's going to happen for Jermaine, and we're going to have to get a sense and a feel for him. He has the ability to do either. I'm not so consumed with, is he better at one than the other? But somewhere there in his heart, which one is it going to be for him? We're going to give him the opportunity to do that, and I'm going to give my honest assessment. I've got to see him live. I got to work with him and feel where he's better suited early on in his career, and navigate him down one road to do the bulk of what he does, and then offset that with some of the things he does on the other side of the ball. Obviously, he's an electric player with the ball in his hands. The guy scores touchdowns. It's almost like that's what he does for a living. But yet, you watch him play DB, he can guard people. He can guard people, and he's physical, and he can play the game. So it's a good problem to have when you can recruit a player of his caliber, and we'll find our way through it. The good thing is, like I said, this isn't totally foreign to us. We've been down this road before.
High praise right there from Coach Sark. And I always assume, we're talking about an offensive-minded head coach, and the head coach always has the final say. So when you have a guy like this, I assume he's going to play offense. But Sark made sure to praise Bishop's abilities as a defensive back. I'm excited. You could tell the coaches too. And look, I don't want to make I do want to make Travis Hunter comparisons, but I'm not going to, because that guy is kind of one in a million. But Jermaine Bishop Jr. is the type of guy who can make a legitimate impact in all three phases during his college career. He's not going to play every single snap like Hunter did, but he could play primarily on offense, get a few snaps on defense, and be an elite return man too. I think I'd prefer him to play wide receiver because, as Steve Sarkisian just said, the guy just scores touchdowns. It's almost like it's his job, and that's never a bad thing. He is an electric playmaker with the ball in his hands. Like, you turn on his tape, it is impossible to not fall head over heels for this guy when you watch what he does on Friday nights. But either way, if he does end up playing defense, maybe that's where Bishop wants to play, then Texas has a stud. He is going to be an impact player very, very early on in his Texas career, and I think for the entirety of his Longhorn career as well. I am pumped. I'm going to be watching him for the rest of his high school postseason run, but I can't wait to watch him in the spring. And obviously, when we get to next fall, he is going to be tough to leave off the field. Just an explosive, electric playmaker. It feels like Texas went more with size than speed with their 2025 receivers. Bishop's all about that speed right there. He's only about 155, 160, not a huge dude at all, but he can scoot now. And looking forward to watching him play in Austin. He's my favorite member of this class. I'm not scared to say it, and I don't think I'll be alone by the time his career is done. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. If you made it this far, number one, God bless you. Number two, please remember to like, comment, rate 5 stars, share, subscribe, turn on notifications, all of those great things. If you do that, I don't get fired. So really, I appreciate y'all's continued support of what we're building with Locked On Longhorns. None of it would be possible without y'all. Hey, for your next listen, check out Locked On SEC. My man Chris Gordy is breaking down everything around the conference, from the conference championship game to national signing day to playoff conversation to everything in between. You can find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Plenty more national signing day reaction, portal stuff, and who knows what's going to drop over the weekend, but we got you covered with everything right here on Locked On Longhorns. That'll do it for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Enjoy the weekend. Until next time, horns up, mic's off. We'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.